Hey everybody, how's it going? Thank you so much for joining me. I am just checking a couple of settings because I've had a little bit of a technical issue with my internet stream tonight, but everything's looking good. Um, let's not waste any more time. Let's bring in your friend and my friend, Mr. Lou Elizondo.
Hey, Vinny, how are you?
I'm good, Lou. How are you, man?
I'm doing quite well. Apologies for keeping you all up so late. I'm
It's
in
all good.
Colorado Springs this week doing some work, and unfortunately, my time schedule is extremely compressed, and it is not mine. So, sincere and humble apologies to you and your wonderful audience, but great to see you again.
Hey, it's so good that you could take the time out and come back. And I think we fixed the technical issues that we had last time as far as sharing screens and all that
Yeah,
stuff. We just
thanks
spent
to
the
you.
last.
I've never been very technically proficient, so I
Whoa!
do
It's
certainly
not thanks to
appreciate.
me. We just spent the last 10 minutes. I just sat here and watched you work away and do it. So no, thank you so much, man. Thank you to everybody in the live chat here right now. I really appreciate you all being here. I'm just going to state I have turned off super chat because this is a presentation by Lou. This isn't like a massive AMA, ask anything and all that. So just wanted to put that out there. So yeah, here we are. Lou, how's
Here we are.
Colorado treating you, man?
Today's beautiful. I had a hell of a drive coming in yesterday through, they had shut down the highway. So I was coming down Highway 25, and fortunately I have my truck is, you know, jacked up a little bit. So I have the
What
ability
you
to go through
driving? What
deep
you
snow.
driving? What is it?
It's a Ram with
Ooh,
four-wheel drive with Dodge Cummins motor. So it's, most people
beast.
know I'm a gearhead. So yeah, she's a bit of a beast. Definitely go anywhere, anytime type vehicle. A bit of a
Nice.
zombie apocalypse type truck. And she actually normally she's a parking lot princess, but yesterday she was a workhorse. She did be good.
Appreciate it, man. That sounds awesome, man. So, listen, we know why we're here. I think everybody's really eager because we've touched upon this AI that
Yeah.
has been mentioned for quite some time now.
Yeah,
Are you
well, I
ready?
was going to initially talk to you about the AI, and I'm going to, but I think,
Mhm.
you know what? Since I put you guys off for about a week or two on this, and it wasn't intentional, but
Of course.
let me give you the full presentation if that's okay. And I'm going to
Of
go
course.
a little faster than I normally do. This is a presentation that has been provided to some fairly senior people,
Right.
and I think hopefully it'll kind of give a broad perspective of what are we doing? How are we doing it? Where have we gone? Where are we now? And where are we going?
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and share, if you don't mind. I'm just going to share the screen now.
Do it,
Share
man. I'm ready.
screen. Forgive me, folks, if I do something wrong here. Can you
I
see
can
my?
see it, man. We're ready to
All
roll.
right, here we go. Now, first of all, folks, I know people are going to go ahead and pick apart this thing, but just know that this is for, really, the purpose of this briefing is to elicit conversation, just get people talking and understanding the methodologies, and kind of take away the mystery of how we've been doing things. So I've talked about the 5 pillars of UAP engagement. And very
Yeah.
much like this picture here, when you're building these pillars, you really want to be consistent and build them roughly at the same rate and the same time, because if one pillar gets higher than another, then you wind up having a crooked roof. So we really have been very diligent in making sure that these 5 pillars all rise collectively together. And by the way, there may be other pillars as we move into the future. So I have this slide up here just to provoke conversation. What I usually tell folks is, let me see if I can hide this. Give me 1 second. Does that work? Nope. I'm sorry, guys. Let's try that again.
It's all good, man. Just don't
Uh,
show your calendar.
yeah. So, the question always everybody asks, right? What is disclosure? And I think it's important, in order for us to have a conversation, we really all need to come to agreement of what it means. Now, this is a definition and that I was able to find: the action of making new or secret information known. Pretty simple, actually. Not
Yeah.
not too complicated. And we'll get back to that question. So the pillar one is, the first pillar of engagement is legislative engagement. Here in our country, we have 3 branches of government. There is the legislative branch, the executive branch, and then there is the judicial branch. Um, we chose a legislative branch for a reason, because these are the folks that set the laws of the land, and they're also the ones that fund the government. They're the ones who set the budgets. So it's important that as we ensure we speak about this topic, that we engage our lawmakers. Now, let me just preface: we're not. We're not lobbying. People say, "Oh, are you lobbying? You're lobbyists." No, we're not. We're not asking for a cent, not one red penny. What we're doing is just making sure that members of Congress are informed. So you see here some of the advantages, why we do what we do: ensuring lawmakers in the U.S. are provided relevant, accurate UAP information by qualified experts. What's a qualified expert? Now, this is not intended to hurt anybody's feelings, but in government terms, it's people who hold a security clearance, who have a very specific job, and they are a qualified expert in their field. So whether it's missile telemetry or radar exploitation, or fill in the blank, that is a qualified expert. It's not a hobbyist. It's not a ufologist. It's really someone who's getting paid by the U.S. government to do a very specific job. Now, I know some people are going to argue that and say, well, but that's not really a qualified expert. Well, but it is in government terms. I'm not saying it is from a universal perspective, simply from a governmental perspective.
Yeah.
And so we make sure that those briefings, we facilitate those briefings so they can occur. We also, it facilitates educated decisions to properly fund UAP efforts within the U.S. government. And so you see here annual budget cycles. MIP and NIP stand for Military Intelligence Program, and NIP stands for National Intelligence Program, making sure that Congress knows that if you want to help out, that's where you put some of the money. So now you can get the intelligence community engaged to start actually looking at this this effort, if you will, this problem collectively. It also allows for better oversight and decreases excessive secrecy. So Congress says, you know what, I want a 180-day report. So they get a 180-day report. They said, hey, that's great, but now I want a 90-day report. And oh, by the way, I want a report from the Secretary of Defense every year, right? So it becomes a snowball effect. And you see here the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence and the Senate Armed Services Committee. It also permits dialogue between constituents and elected officials. So now when a constituent calls and says to their elected official, have you been briefed? They can say yes. And you know what? You're right. This is an important topic for us, and it's an important topic for our district or our state. It also promotes media acceptance, because now the media feels enjoined to actually ask the question that they never wanted to ask before, and that is asking our members of Congress, what do you think about UFOs, right? And then, of course, it enables international dialogue with other governments, specifically through their legislative processes, so their Congresses, their parliaments, committees, etc. So these are just some of the reasons why Pillar 1 is so important.
Yeah.
Pillar 2 is
sorry, I was going to say that last point on Pillar 1 with other governments. I mean,
it does.
Every time that stands out. I think about the UK, though, how we still seem to be falling behind.
Well, I get it. We have to have patience. We have to. You can lead a horse to water, right? But you can't make it drink.
Absolutely.
So we have to, just continue, be persistent, and be fair-minded and rational about this topic. I think ultimately logic will prevail. The next pillar is executive level engagement, and this helps ensure that the bureaucracy, who's designed to execute the will of Congress, can do so, and they understand what those wants of Congress are, and then basically provide deliverables. It also allows for the defense and the intelligence communities to prioritize UAP data collection. Now, by the way, as you see, it's no longer just going to be defense and intelligence communities. We're beginning to open the aperture, but that's where we've been focusing on for the last 3.5 years. And as you see, as a result of that, you have a Deputy Secretary of Defense memo creating a strategic plan, literally on the heels of the 180-day report. But it also enables intra and inter-government efforts to be coordinated. So it's not just across federal agencies, but it's also up and down. And it also includes organizations not typically maybe included in the UAP conversation, like Department of Energy, like NASA potentially, like FAA. So
DHS,
NOAA. Excellent. You're right. You must have read these slides already. It also encourages resources and time investment, because now they know that the will of Congress is such, and therefore, the executive department could say, okay, we're going to take this seriously. It also helps eliminate stovepipes of previous UAP efforts. So, for example, like the UAP Task Force and ATIP, my program, and even OSAP to some degree, really suffered from stovepipes. You had this office that was squirreled away under a directorate, that was squirreled away under an undersecretary, that was squirreled away under a department, under squirreled away, right? And so none of these organizations really shared information very well with each other. And there wasn't any senior level oversight. Now it says, you see this last bullet here, ensures proper oversight of UAP activities. Now you have the Director of National Intelligence and the Secretary of Defense directly now involved and on the line of responsibility for this topic. So executive level engagement is important. The next is international engagement. And this is something near and dear, I think, to all of our hearts. But this helps us synchronize U.S. efforts with other nations. Japan is an example where about 9 months ago, they came out and they said, we'd like to enter into a bilateral information sharing relationship with the United States regarding UFOs, UAP. There's other countries as well, but they haven't they don't want to go public yet, so you don't see them in this slide. Sure. It also helps establish new opportunities for intelligence information sharing of UAP data, not necessarily with other countries, but international organizations such as NATO and the United Nations, and our Five Eye relationship that we cherish so much with the UK and Australia and Canada and some of these other countries. Sure. It also removes individual burdens of a nation and leverages partnerships to share the responsibility, right? So what do I mean by that? It's no longer one country having to pay the bill for all of this. We can all kind of pool our resources together. So NORAD is an example where you have a U.S. commander, but the deputy commander is Canadian. And so, when you bring the UAP topic to them, now it's really more of an international approach, not just a U.S. or one country approach, but also equally important, it minimizes one nation's ability to control the narrative. We've seen what happens in the last 70 years when we allow one country to control the narrative, and in essence, not a whole lot gets done. So really, this is very important. When you have an international conversation, then you truly have a collective conversation. It's not just one country that's managing the narrative. It also encourages joint research and development efforts and increased collaboration, which is very important, and helps maintain a common operating picture. That's kind of a military term, if you will, of the situation, while minimizing misunderstanding of adversarial provocations. Now, we know that these UAPs have interfered with U.S. nuclear capabilities and also Russian nuclear capabilities. What most people may not know, maybe some do, is that we actually have a communication with Russia over the northern part of our globe, our planet. And because when you launch nuclear missiles, you're going to launch them. The quickest way to get them to Russia and Russia to get them to us is over the North Pole. And so we have this agreement that if one of us happens to see something unusual over the North Pole, we can pick up the phone and call the other and say, hey, Boris, is that you? Or they can call us and say, hey, Joe, is that you guys? Or is this something else? Now, why is that important? Because we now know countries like India and Pakistan, who aren't necessarily friendly to each other, they both have nuclear capabilities. Can you imagine if a UFO were to be encountered potentially over one of their nuclear installations and it gets confused as some sort of provocation of war by the other side? I mean, that would be horrible. So it is important that we have this international engagement. Yeah. Pillar 4 is mainstream media engagement. This is why people see me on mainstream media a lot. And despite what people think, where I only do one type of media outlet, that's not true. I've done many outlets on both sides. But why is this important? Because it socializes the reality of UAP to a much broader audience. It also helps destigmatize the topic because now they're talking about it and they're reporting on it. It also further encourages legislative and executive branch involvement because when the mainstream media starts asking them hard questions, now they want answers. Now they're saying, you know what, I can't answer that question, but I'm going to poke somebody who can, and we're going to get back to you with some answers. It also provides data to massive information consumer base. Never before have we been able to take information across the planet so quickly in various different, if you will, media aggregators like Associated Press or Mother Jones or Comcast, where you could do a podcast today and it winds up being in a written article tomorrow and then later on in a broadcast the next day. And it could be virtually around the planet. Now, with that said, there's also some danger with that, right? Because there's an old saying that a lie will travel around the world in the time it takes for the truth to leave the front door. So it's important that we be aware of that and only provide valid accurate information. It also creates positive pressure for scientific and academic communities. You now have academia asking folks like Dr. Avi Loeb, right? Hey, is this topic
Yes.
important, right? This is super, super important. It's helpful. It gives them an outlet, gives them an ability to have the conversation. It also increases government transparency, as we saw with the New York Times story, right? For years, if not decades, we've been saying, no, we don't look at UFOs. Oh, well, surprise, we do actually. And then, of course, it provides a platform for new theories because now people can talk to the media and new theories. And some of them, may not necessarily follow a line of logic, but they're probably worth listening to anyways.
Yeah.
And then pillar 5 is public engagement. The most important, in my opinion, because it enables the public to take part of the UAP conversation. They see something on the nightly news, and now they're talking about it around the water cooler, maybe around the dinner table at night. This is important. It also allows for endorsement for the other 4 pillars. If the people say this is a topic that's important to them, the media will cover it, and our legislative members will begin to look at this, and same with our executive branch. So public engagement is probably the most important. It also bolsters the ability to fund and budget UAP studies in both government and the private sector, because now people say, you know what, this is important, and I'm willing to actually put some money behind this for us to try to figure this out one way or another. It creates a platform for grassroots enclaves to exist. Right now, you and I having this conversation, this is amazing. This is Twitter and social media. It facilitates a confederated effort and data crowdsourcing environment. Now we've got people who have cell phones in their hands, and YouTube is full of videos that we can all look at and collaborate and talk about. And then, of course, helps create new political platforms and agendas. Disclosure, I think, being potentially one of them. Now, those are the 5 pillars. What have those 5 pillars yielded since 2017? Of course, a lot of people say, yeah, not much has happened, in the last 3.5 years. Well, okay, let's go down that rabbit hole for a minute. We have DoD admitting the 3 videos are real. They admit that the videos depict unidentified aerial vehicles. The Department of Navy creates a UAP reporting policy and guidelines and actual reporting guidelines and policies that get promulgated. DoD establishes an official UAP task force under the Deputy Secretary of Defense directly. Mainstream media takes notice and begins to actively report on these encounters. Members of Congress receive classified briefings. Members of Congress have taken lead in advocating for greater transparency. Former directors of national intelligence and CIA admit and are talking about UAPs. POTUS receives a classified briefing on at least 2 occasions. Our president of the United States, former president of the United States, publicly acknowledges the realities of UAPs, along with two former presidents of the United States publicly acknowledge the reality of UAPs. Congress mandates a 180-day report be submitted by the DoD and DNI. One of only 144 incidents in that 180-day report were resolved. Congress mandates a UAP report every 90 days. Japan requests a bilateral information sharing agreement with the U.S. China introduces the 5 Continents Initiative, and one of the largest IC collaborative virtual environments is created to analyze UAP data. Now, that's just since 2017. I would argue that probably more has been done in the last 3.5 years than in the last 3 decades. Now, by the way, when I say that, I'm not taking credit for it. A lot of people were part of this, okay? But that's yesterday. What about today? Well, here's what's going on today, folks. Senior academics in the U.S. are involved in the serious study of UAP phenomenon. Renowned universities in the U.S. are expressing interest in officially studying UAPs. Scientific enclaves are being created to test the physics. Scholarship programs focusing on UAP performance are being developed. Defense Intelligence University at DIA and the National Intelligence University are accepting theses on UAPs. That's remarkable that you have actually these academic institutions in our national security apparatus now accepting theses on UAPs. Data from previous U.S. projects are being consolidated under a single entity. U.S. Navy is filing patents on potential UAP propulsion technology. DoD is developing a strategic plan to study UAPs for years into the future. UAP information is being integrated into U.S. intelligence collection cycle. Certain allied nations are expressing interest in working with the U.S. government. The DoD IG is conducting an evaluation and several inquiries into DoD's handling of the UAP topic. Certain members of Congress have expressed desire for public hearings. Study of UAPs are being included into annual budget cycles, both MIP and NIP. Former senior members of the intelligence community are assisting with U.S. government efforts involving UAPs. Office of Director of National Intelligence, Office of the Secretary of Defense, Navy, Spacecom, NORAD, and other elements of the IC are actively working UAP issues and planning for state, local, and tribal authorities to integrate UAP data is underway. That is all what's happening right now behind the scenes as we speak. So if it wasn't enough, the last slide to talk about what's happened in the last 3.5 years, here's what's going on right now.
I'm just going to give you a quick, I just want to give a quick shout out. Witness Citizen gave a super sticker before. Thank you so much, Sean. I appreciate it. Thomas Fester, thank you so much for the super sticker. Lou, sorry to interrupt you, man. Let's go on to phase 2.
Yeah, so that's all, that's that, and all that is occurring under phase 1. So we talk about yesterday, we talk a little bit about today, but what about tomorrow, right? So you're now going to get information that has not really been publicly shared at all, really. It's only been in one other public venue that I'm aware of. But this is what we want to do, create a multidisciplinary environment. Well, what does that mean? What does that look like? Well, it looks something like this. Think of a national or a federal laboratory. And what you now have are each one of these bubbles surrounding it are contributing members to this federal lab construct, where you have the international community, right? And countries, part of that. By the way, each one of these little bullets are just sub-examples. There's many, 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 many examples. Each one of these little bubbles could be a whole briefing on its own. You have the academic community. You have the scientific community and technology community. You have even the private sector, intelligence community, defense community, and even the interagencies, all working together to try to understand this phenomenon with their respective expertise. So let's take, for example, when someone asks, well, what can the technology community provide us? Well, let's take one tiny bullet within the technology community. Let's talk about artificial intelligence. So here's some basic bullets. We know the technology exists today to analyze UAP data almost instantaneously, and it's anywhere in the world. This technology is relatively low cost. Now, relatively is important. I'll explain that in a minute. This technology continues to improve over time, and this technology offers innumerable advantages over its human counterpart. So now what I'm about to present to you is a test case, okay? This is an example of how AI can be helpful to our discussion. Yes, we are currently working on this. It's been a lot of work. It's not ready for prime time. So I'm going to run through you an example with using a real video. So this summer,
we've been waiting for.
Yeah, this summer we got a video. And by the way, this is important to test the veracity and credibility of information. Just as it is important to test to see if a UFO video or picture is real, it's also important to be able to disprove it, because when you're going to elected officials, you have to be able to tell them with confidence, 99.9% confidence, that this is legit or it's not. So we get a video from a military officer in, I won't say exactly where, other than California. And he says, look, I saw a black UFO hovering in the distance. He took a video using regular resolution on a commercially available cellular telephone. He is a U.S. Army officer, and I'm going to play it for you real quick. Now, when you see it, it's going to be very grainy, and you're not going to see very much. The video itself is actually a little bit better quality. You had to compress it to get it on here. But that little black disc back there, you're looking and say, well, that doesn't really look like much of anything, even though that the guy swears he saw a black disc hovering in the background. So why is that important? Well, because then what we can do is, let me show you the still.
Whoa.
Right. That people say, whoa, wait a minute. That looks like a black hovering disc in the desert. You're not lying. Holy crap. So let's see what AI can do for us. So you have the AI first look at the background, and the AI immediately identifies 3 environmental anomalies not consistent with the background, right? So it looks at these objects and says, this is not consistent with the background. However, the image is legitimate. The background has not been manipulated, and is comparing and contrasting color, shape, and pixelation, okay? And then we ask the AI, okay, what about the object itself? Now, the human eye can't see it, but it identifies minor pixelation anomalies that are analyzed to be protrusions, some sort of weird thing coming off the side of this black disc, right? It also determines that the image is legitimate and it has not been manipulated, and it is not an artifact. It's a genuine object on screen. So then you ask the AI, okay, so regarding the background, what can you tell us? Well, Okay, so the artificial intelligence comes up and says, look, there's a 94% likelihood that that is the tail of a C-17 aircraft that you're seeing in the middle. 85% certainty that that is an F-35 Lightning that you're looking at. And of course, there to the far right it looks like the tail of two aircraft, but it doesn't really know what it is. Now, these pictures are stock pictures. Ultimately what will happen is we'll have the rights to actually have, real schematic, hopefully government schematic diagrams of aircraft that we'll be able to compare and contrast. And then when you look at the mechanism in the middle here, this if you will, this disc, it says there is something for sure coming off the edges of this disc. So then you ask the AI, okay, so in your best guess, what are we looking at? What it appears to be a black disc is in fact an dark olive green U.S. Army field tent, observation tent, and the protrusions coming off the side are guide wires. And what this is more than likely is a U.S. Army tent that has been set up as observation along an airfield to do flight operations. And so that is why it is so important that we invest in these type of capabilities, because not only will it allow us to identify when a UFO is real, but it will also help us identify when it's not. It's equally important that we can do both fair and objectively. Now, limitations of AI. You see here to the left, near instant analysis of massive volume of information, obviously is more accurate than human counterparts. It doesn't succumb to human fatigue, operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, operate all classification levels, and the more data, the more accurate it becomes, and is bias neutral. But like we all know, there are limitations. So all AI must be trained. There is a massive upfront time investment to train it. There's also an initial investment to build it is expensive. It requires human oversight, and not all AI is created equal. Right. And bad data can perpetuate poor results. So if I teach the AI to identify a tent as a disk, then it will always identify a tent as a disk. And last but not least, it lacks human discernment. So towards the end here, I asked everybody the same question. The question your kid always wants to know in the back of the car when you're going on a trip. Are we there yet? Are we there? Do we have disclosure? And the answer is, I don't know. I'll leave that to you. So with that said, let me go back here and come back to you guys. I think it's here, right? And let me stop sharing my screen. All right. So that is a presentation that kind of shows a little bit about the methodology that we've been using, a little bit of a method to our madness, the touch points that we have been focusing on, and also the artificial intelligence, why it's important, because it is equally important to prove and disprove. We have to be objective. The moment you see that black disc, people go, whoa, that's incredible. And then you say, well, yeah, but that's because we want to see it. We want to see a disc, right? We're looking at something and we're seeing what we want to see. And although it's very tempting, we really, really have to be careful to avoid that temptation, especially if we're going to continue to be taken seriously. We have to be our own worst critics, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
I think that's the only reason why we have gotten collectively all together, all of us, as far as we have, at least so far.
I'll tell you right now, that black disc got me initially.
It got all of us. I won't lie.
Instant impression.
Got really excited too.
Another shout out, Sean, Witness Citizen UAP, another $2.99 super sticker. Brother, thank you so much, man. You don't have to do that. I love you anyway, man. Thank you so much. Lou, if it's okay with you, I've got a few questions lined up. Are you happy
it's 5:30 right now, my time, local time. I've got about I can probably do 10 minutes, and then I've got a jam. Unfortunately, it's my schedule is not mine. I am actually really working for, believe it or not.
Completely understand. So I'm going to skip those first few. Sorry to everybody. I'm going to jump into what everybody is probably wanting to talk about, which is James Lakatsky's book that came out yesterday. Can you talk about your interactions with James Lakatsky?
James is an amazing human being. He is the guy that I could never mention because I had a professional respect for him and a personal respect that I would never reveal his identity until he was ready to reveal his identity. And I kept that secret until he came out with his book. He's an incredible human being, by far one of the greatest rocket scientists we've ever had. And I'm glad he's finally being vindicated.
Yeah. Now, but the thing is with the book as well that it doesn't contain top secret SCI information, yet it seems to portray a lot of information that we don't know already. How is that hidden somewhere, but it's declassified? Where's the? Do you see
Well,
where
he
I'm
went through
coming
a
from?
review process. He had to go through, from my understanding, a very lengthy review process, about 14 months through the Pentagon. I imagine they probably weren't very happy initially with him releasing it. But I can't really comment on the book because it's not my book. That book was written. If you have specific questions about the book, my recommendation would be to approach him. But he's an incredible human being.
No, I understand completely. Let's just jump back to the AI software quickly. With the new avenue that the direction is going in with the AI and the data and everything that may come out of it, are we likely to see a development in the observables, let's say, as far as we have 6 or 6 right now? Could we see that number jump?
I sure hope so. Yeah, I mean that's the intent, right? Is to open the aperture. My hope is that we do find other observables. I suspect we probably will, but you don't know what you don't know, right? So this is part of that. I'm sure some really smart, savvy people are going to get a hold when this AI finally gets fielded. They're going to be like, they're going to find all sorts of creative ways to use it that we never would have imagined. We're going to say, holy smokes, yeah.
No, that's great. Thank you. We saw the interview on Mystery Wire with Colm Kelleher and
Another
Jim
good man.
Lakatsky.
Colm is an incredible human being as well. He's done a lot for this country. We owe him a great deal of gratitude for sure.
Absolutely, I completely agree. I've been following his work for quite some years, but he actually talked about a case which involves some a public encounter with a father and daughter with 3 orbs that actually entered a vehicle, passed through the father's shoulder. We're talking about 3 orbs of baseball size. Is that something that you encountered through your studies in ATIP that you can correlate to what was studied in ORSAP?
I'm not gonna talk about OSAP. I've refrained from that since the beginning. It's not my place. I can't speak from a position of authority or expertise in OSAP. I've made that very clear since day one. I know people are curious. I'm curious, but it's not my area of expertise, and it wouldn't be wise for me to comment on that aspect.
I understand completely. One thing that has come up is one little small sentence about remote viewing, and I'm not going to actually ask you to comment on this statement, but this is something I've asked you about in the past that you didn't want to extrapolate on, and this is just for everybody that's asking. I'm not going to go there, Lou. I think this. I'm right in saying this, that it's not part of the discussion that we need to be having right now.
Well, it's first of all, it's written in somebody else's book.
Yeah.
And if somebody wants to ask questions about it, they need to ask that person. I've done a lot of things for my country. Most of my background and my professional experience has not been open to the public. The only part of my career that's ever been open to the public is really my part concerning UAPs, and there's a reason for that. I'm not going to confirm or deny or elaborate one way or the other what some of my other duties and responsibilities are, or were, or have been. I'm not sure it's relevant to the conversation, to be honest with you. We've been, I think, very successful focusing on the UAP effort, and I think we need to, at least from my perspective, that's where I need to remain focused.
I completely understand. This is this conversation has been planned for a few weeks. With the drop of the book yesterday, my inbox exploded with remote viewing this, remote viewing that, and we touched upon this a while back, and I understand your position that. So I just wanted to put this out there for everyone that I'm not going to push that narrative. Let's finish off on a question that I really have got for months and months and months. What books relating to UFOs would you recommend anybody
Don't
read?
ask me that. I hate doing that. I don't want to endorse a product. I don't want to.
Is this harder than
I
anything
made that
else?
mistake once before, and apparently those the what I recommended went on Amazon, became like, it was like a $6 book, and wound up going for like $500 for a book. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't mean to do that. People asked me a question, I gave them an honest answer, and all of a sudden, now people are like, that book's like $500. I'm like, oh God, no.
Well, I hope this doesn't affect the price, but I'll recommend Graham Rendell's book on the Foo Fighters, 1940 to 1945.
I will say I have a copy of it, and I will say
Yes.
that I am. It is.
It's incredible.
I am reading it. But I have to be really careful here, Vinny, endorsing anything, man. I did it.
I understand.
With, of course, our friend in Australia as well, because I really liked it.
Yeah.
And I got beat up so bad for doing that. People say,
Really?
yeah, oh yeah, because they think I was getting a kickback, right? And I'm like, no, I'm not getting paid,
Of
man.
course they did.
For some reason, everybody happens to think it's always about money. I'm like, well, it's not. I think I saw once recently on social media that I was making all sorts of money with the History Channel. I'm like, dude, I made enough with 2 years worth of work to buy a fancy lawnmower. So get over it. I made substantially less than minimum wage. In fact, if I wanted to, I could probably have a lawsuit for like slave labor, because I put 2 years of my life into something and got paid peanuts, literally. I mean, and I had to take time off of work to do it. So I actually lost money doing something that was part of the 5 pillars there, right? So that was the pillar 5. That was part of engagement, to everybody else, public engagement. That's why Chris and I did it.
Understandable. Listen, Lou, I will just one last question. What's next for you as we see out the end of 2021 and jumping into 2022? What's happening?
Well, I kind of gave you a sneak peek already, I thought. That briefing kind of,
So when do we expect the drop then? And am I right in saying this is going to be app-based? Public?
It's going to be multi-based. There's an app, but there's also a desktop, and there's going to be other pieces to this. I mean, has not been easy. My intent is to provide it, allow this capability to go free to anybody who wants it. And then, if you want to use it for some very, very specific stuff where it actually is costing us a hell of a lot of money, then maybe, somebody might want to do a subscription, but it's not necessary. You don't have to do that. It's going to be available. Our intent is to allow, a version of it free for anybody who wants to use it. But that costs money. And nobody's donating to this. It's, people say, oh, well, where is it? I want it. Well, yeah, sure. But it ain't cheap. And it's been, a lot of us, are doing this from from a place in our heart where we want to contribute. But it's like, guys, you ain't paying for it. So, you want it to come around faster. Well, we're trying our best,
Absolutely,
so
man. I appreciate it. Quick shout out to Lara. Thank you so much for the $5. I think I've got one more. Tyler at Contact Tour. Thank you for the $10 so much. Lou, this has been amazing, eye-opening. I'm so blessed that I was the first for you to show this presentation. It means a lot.
I did it at a forum, but it wasn't really public. It was invitation only. I did it in Europe. It has not been publicly provided. It has been provided to some other very senior people. Like I said, you are really the first that this has been publicly provided to.
That means a lot. It means a lot. And if you could just hang about for a minute after we have the conversation, a little debrief, because we are meeting, myself and you are meeting in London in a couple of weeks, and we won't say any more about that, but that could be fun. Everybody, we'll see if something comes out of that. A little video, a little interview or something. But
a Cuban in the UK, there's got to be a joke there somewhere. There's got to be a joke there somewhere.
Dude, we're going to drink some ale.
I'm ready, man. I'll tell you, I love the UK. If anybody has ever wanted to go anywhere in the world, if you've never been to Westminster Abbey, you will absolutely be in tears. It is one of the most profoundly beautiful places I've ever been. It's almost overwhelming. And when you see the history of UK there, and all these people that have been buried there, and some of the tombs and how ornate, and the love that was put in behind some of those, it's just breathtaking. It's absolutely incredible.
It is. We take it for granted sometimes here in the UK. Finally, Laura Sosa, thank you for that super sticker. Lou, I'm not going to keep you any longer, man.
Well, I don't want to keep you guys. I appreciate it. Yeah, I got to roll, but I know it's almost 1 o'clock for you all over there. I apologize.
Hey, don't you dare apologize, man. It's been a pleasure. It's always good to speak to you, man. You've always given me the time of day, and yeah, it means the world. So thank you so much, man.
Great. Well, I'm sure people are going to poke holes in that briefing I gave you. There's always people out
Let's
there.
Go.
No matter what I try to do, they're like, yeah, I like that. I don't like that. So,
man, we got you, man. It's all good. Guys, thank you to everyone in the live chat. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Love you so much. Until the next time, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.